Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, Christos Anesti, and want to welcome you to the FDR Museum and Library event today, celebrating the 75th year plus two because of the delays with the pandemic. We gather here together to commemorate and revisit the placing of the statue 77 years ago of a great president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Our chapter is delighted to be hosting this, in addition with the Hellenic Cultural Commission and our District 6 Governor, who will be in attendance today.
We are here today to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the dedication of the statue that Delphi Chapter 25 of AHEPA gave to Roosevelt during a ceremony that took place in 1945 here at Hyde Park in New York, where his house and library are housed. When the dedication took place, Roosevelt had died, and when they dedicated the statue, there was 1,500 people here. That included the president's wife, Eleanor. Also, there was a trisagion that took place by the archbishop at the time, who was Athanagoras, who later became the patriarch in Constantinople. Also attending the ceremony was obviously Delphi Chapter 25 members and also the Supreme President, who laid a wreath. So today we're going to have the dedication again as it was in 1945. We're going to have a fellow Orthodox priest who will do the trisagion for him at his gravesite, which is near the statue. And we will also lay a wreath at his grave. Just for the audience who are listening, Roosevelt, FDR, when he was governor of New York, he was inducted into AHEPA, and he became a member of our chapter, Delphi. And Delphi is the oldest chapter in New York. It's also the largest chapter currently in AHEPA's national and international domain. Roosevelt was a member of Delphi Chapter 25 from 1931, when he was the governor of New York. And then he stayed and was a dues-paying member until 1945, when he died. There was, I'm going to be discussing it later in my keynote address relating to this particular event later, and give you some of the details of the linkage between Delphi Chapter 25, AHEPA, and also Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
On behalf of the administration of Delphi Chapter, District 6, the Hellenic National Commission, welcome everybody to this beautiful event on this beautiful day, honoring a member of our chapter, Delphi 25, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Our chapter brothers engraved on the statue. This statue was commissioned by the Delphi Chapter brothers in 1945.
Σε γνωρίζω από την όψη του σπαθιού την τρομερή, σε γνωρίζω από την όψη που με διαμετράει τη γη, απ' τα κόκαλα βγαλμένη των Ελλήνων τα ιερά, και σαν πρώτα αντριωμένη χέρο-χέρ ελευθεριά. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Christos anesti ek nekron, thanaton patisas ketis entis mi masi zori harisamelos.
But I would like to recognize Mr. Bill Harris, who's with us here today, who's the acting director of the FDR Presidential Library and Home. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Bill, and give us some of your...
And President Roosevelt wanted us, this is part of his charge, he wanted this library to be for the American people as a resource, and that we have this space here, and that we're able to have groups like this in. We're very thankful. Now you can imagine, we've got a sitting president, a president who may be running for a third term. Organizations just began besieging this library and the president with offers for paintings, statues, sculptures, you name it. Every group wanted to donate something, and they wanted, and that essentially wasn't the purpose of this, which he wanted his papers to come in here, and he wanted there to be an exhibit, but he wanted it to be a place of research and study. However, he was also the consummate politician, of course. And he appreciated that there was an opportunity to honor those groups who had been very supportive, that he was a member of, as he was this group, and who had shown a real commitment to the same values that the president held. And of course, you know, he recognized, especially as a New York politician, that various groups had an important role in his political career. So you know, it was interesting to me because I went back and I pulled not only the historical files, but our library administrative files, which aren't considered historical, but which actually are, to view the correspondence of my predecessor, the first director here, who started in July of 1940, and who was managing sort of and working. The president's office was directly down the hall from the director's office, and the president would roll down the hall and into the president, to show you how involved he was with this library, he'd also picked the carpet out for the director's office, the drapes for the director's office, as well as the furniture for the director's office. So the president had his view about how he wanted things to run around here. So he would go down the hall and say, you know, what's going on, Mr. Shipman, how are things going? They consulted a lot. And the correspondents would say, well, we've been offered this by X group and this by Y group. And one of only two, if you notice on the grounds here, one of only two statues that were accepted and dedicated on the grounds of this library, one of them was your group. And so I think that speaks, and I want to be real clear, when you've been in the history and you live in this world the way we do, everything had a purpose to the president, and everything had meaning. And so choices of this nature weren't made casually, nor were they made on a sort of transitory basis. You know, it was thought out, and they decided that he felt, at the very least, that your group should be honored in that way.
How many AHEPA chapters can boast of having a past United States president as a member of AHEPA in their ranks? I believe the answer is none. What a fitted tribute to the current leaders of the Delphi chapter to commemorate this event. With patience and perseverance, the current leaders of the Delphi chapter finally were able to execute their plan and have this long overdue commemoration. I take this opportunity to congratulate the officers and members of the AHEPA Delphi Chapter 25, and especially brothers George Iliopoulos, Argyris Argitakos, Ted Klingas, past District 6 Governor Lou Katsas, and all members of the event committee. Brothers, well done.
This is also, don't forget, the 100th anniversary of AHEPA, so I'd like to thank everyone, first of all, for the honor, because it truly is, of making this brief presentation today on the occasion of the belated 75th anniversary of the erection of the well-known bust of our esteemed and beloved President and AHEPA Delphi Chapter 25, Brother Franklin Delano Roosevelt, here at Hyde Park. And again, since this is the 100th anniversary of AHEPA, my presentation will go into that a little bit, and I'm going to call it AHEPA, FDR, and Delphi Chapter 25. Established on July 26, 1922 in Atlanta, Georgia, the Fraternal Order of AHEPA was founded by 8 visionary Hellenic immigrants to help unify, organize, and protect against bigotry, discrimination, and defamation faced by people of all ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, perpetrated primarily by the nativist Ku Klux Klan. In the beginning, besides the hard effects of xenophobia, AHEPA had also sought to unite Hellenic Americans after the political Vassilias Venizelos schism at the time that had left Hellenes divided against each other. The charter of the organization stated that the Fraternal Order would promote pure and undefiled Americanism among the Greeks of the United States and instill the deepest loyalties and allegiance of the Greeks of this country to the United States. AHEPA sought to bring Hellenes into the American way of life by establishing better relations with the non-Hellenes. It was in response to a campaign of extermination orchestrated by the resurgent Klan, and in Atlanta, home to the imperial palace of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. At the time, the newly organized KKK, because it had reestablished itself nationwide, was anti-Hellenic, and there was an offensive in the early 1920s featuring boycotts of Hellenic merchants amid incidences of anti-Hellenic documented violence from Miami to Spokane. Storefronts in parts of America had signs stating "No rats, no Greeks, all American," or similar signs. Hellenic men were flogged for dating white women, assaulted for stealing American jobs, and abducted by Klansmen to witness lynching parties where they were beaten and ordered to get out of town. Everyone recognizes that before this time, they had also the burning in Omaha, where 3,000 Hellenes were basically thrown out of the city, their stores looted and destroyed. Belated 75th anniversary is also a historic event. He performed, Archbishop Athanagoras performed the Trisagion for the deceased president, and AHEPA's Supreme President at the time, Harris Burras, laid the wreath, as we did today, on his grave.
We thank you all for being here today. We hope you enjoy this event. It's a very special commemoration. In 1945, when there was a gathering here, there were 1,500 members in the audience. And in addition to Mrs. Roosevelt at the time there was His Eminence Archbishop Athanagoras, who later became our patriarch. So this is a significant event, not just because of the day, not just because of the chapter, but because of the AHEPA family as a whole.
MGTV USA. Οι δραστηριότητες της ελληνοαμερικανικής κοινότητας με βίντεο και πλήρες ρεπορτάζ. Επισκεφτείτε την ιστοσελίδα μας mgtvusa.com. Καλύπτουμε καθημερινά τα γεγονότα στην Ομογένεια.